Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Two Having to Roll podcast. My name is Oliver. On this show, Robin and I are joined by our friend Mark Hulmes. Mark is a creator and a designer in the tabletop roleplay gaming space and is the DM for a popular Dungeons & Dragons stream, High Rollers. Mark is also an enthusiastic LARPer and has created some quality content on YouTube about the hobby. Mark plays in the Empire LRP system here in the UK. We discuss the creation of some of his LARP characters, the latest of which being the Enchantress, Lady Morrigan Mortaire. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you thumbs up. If you're new here, consider subscribing. If you're listening on your favorite audio platform, leave us a nice review. If you need to get in contact with us, you can do so by email, which is down in the description. And with that all out of the way, let's get into our conversation with Mark. The usual first question I ask is how did you get into LARP when you start LARPing? But a lot of people have attributed their finding of Empire LARP and LARPing to yourself and your friends. So I'm interested to know how you found it.
When you've had people on here who have cited my stuff, or like people you've met in the field have said that.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's your fault.
It's so weird. It's so strange because when I made those videos, the very first kind of like Empire LARP videos that I made and things like that, it was with me and Chris and Alex. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I honestly was just like, nobody cares about this. like we'll do it because I thought it was a fun thing to talk about, and they were really excited. And I'd had a couple of people ask me about those videos, but I was like, this is not going to be good. Like, people aren't going to watch this. Yeah. I was just like, it's three dudes talking about their nerdy hobby. There's no footage. I was like, there's no footage of the LARP because you can't film there. Yeah. At best, we have like some great photos to show it off, but that's kind of it. And I was just like, it's not gonna be a big deal. And then, it kind of really, really took off more than any of us were expecting to. And it is something that a lot of people come up and talk about, is like the whole got it to the point where, and I will answer the question. I will answer how I got into LARP in a minute, but like this is going to happen a lot. I go on tangents, it's just cool. Interrupt.
I will facilitate your tangent. Don't worry, it's fine.
But it's interesting because, and I'm sure we'll circle back to it, but the videos actually, the amount of people coming up and kind of talking to me about the videos is why I had to stop making the videos. Because it was getting to the point where people were, I had young people, who'd never been to LARP before. They don't know the etiquette of it and all that kind of stuff. And we would be in the middle of a battlefield and I'd have some guy come up to me and just be like, Mark, just want to say, love the videos, man. And I'd just be like, immersion ruined. I'm in the battle, like, oh, come on, let's go. And then it'd just be like, love the videos, mate, thumbs up. And I'm like, oh, please don't do that. It just got to, and it's, people don't know, right? Like it was just like one of those things, but I was like, okay, put a lid on it, leave it for a little bit, maybe come back to it in the future. Like I feel like I've done enough to bring people into Empire. I've let people know about the hobby. Now's maybe a good time to have a bit of a break. But it's amazing how many people still come up and talk about it, and like still will kind of come and say like, oh, I started going to this stuff because of you.
I didn't realize how kind of bad it must, or not bad it must have been, but an issue it would have been, because it wasn't until we started doing we started this podcast just like, oh, we're just going to talk about our life, and now it's become like a LARP podcast, and specifically like an Empire podcast. So I went back and checked out some of your older stuff, and in the beginning of some of your videos you're like, oh yeah, if you do come, just make sure you're coming for the right reasons.
Because again, we you had people that would come join very specific nation of my previous character, and would come and find your character. And I think for me, it was when it got to the point where stuff that I was doing in character that I was talking about on the podcast because it was exciting, or like on the video, because it was exciting and it was a cool thing to tell everybody about. And then new players were coming into the game and acting like they knew that information, trying to get involved with what I was doing. And I was just like, no, please don't do that. It was just like, there's no way your character would know about this. Like, my character has not told anybody else about this. There is literally no way you could know about this stuff that I'm doing except for this external source. And that's just kind of ruining my game for me. Like, that's kind of, you're jumping into this thing that like, you have no way of knowing. I don't know you. Like, I appreciate that you know me a bit more than I know you, but I don't know who you are. And like, we've never really met before. So, and I think that was just the point where I got to. It was never bad, but it was also having an effect on like the people around me as well, like my group and my friends who were having to kind of deal with this as a sort of auxiliary kind of thing around us. And that was just the point where I was like, okay, it's not a bad thing, but I think I'm going to pull back and kind of like let people enjoy the game. And also it's been great because I feel like a lot of other people have stepped up to fill that gap and been like, people are really hungry for Empire and LARP content. Great. I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to do a stream. I'm going to start making videos on it. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Like getting more people to come in and do more cool stuff. I'm going to circle this all the way back to your original question of how I got into LARP. It's kind of not a super exciting answer, I guess. When I was a teenager, when I was like 15, 16, me and my friends would always be down at local Games Workshop, played a lot of Warhammer, and the staff there we got to like know really well. And they were a little bit older than us, but they were like 19, 20. They were older kids, but they were still kids, 20. But they started telling us about LARP that they went to, and they actually went to another system called Curious Pastimes.
Oh yeah.
And so me and all my friends, you guys, I'm sure you've met people that play Curious Pastimes and stuff. And me and my friends went along and we did a couple. I think we did like 3 or 4 events. A couple of my friends carried on for a couple of years, but I did about 3 or 4 events. As a teenager. It was good fun. It was like, you're a little kid. We were like, not little kids, but like we were teenagers. It was like camping out, drinking beer, meeting people and making friends and stuff. And then it kind of fell to the wayside. And then when I was older and I was working in Cambridge for a games company and things like that, we got a bunch of friends together and it just came up. It just started like the topic of LARP and sort of like things like, I've kind of been looking at it, kind of thinking of giving it a go. And I had some friends who were doing another system. They were doing the, what was it called? The system that PD did that was like the Greek kind of
Odyssey?
Odyssey. Yeah. So I had some friends who were doing Odyssey and they were like, yeah, I'm doing this great system with this company called Profound Decisions. It's really fun, but it's going to end soon. But they have like a fancy one. And so me and a couple of like, my work colleagues were like, for me, it was like, I used to do it when I was a kid and I kind of be fun to give it a try again as an adult. I've got money now. That can make a difference.
It helps. It certainly helps.
It really helps. It really helps. So we got like a bunch of us, we got like 3 or 4, 5 of us together and we went along to our first Empire. And we just loved it. I think it was just coming into it with a very different mindset. Like it was, a bunch of friends who didn't get to see each other very often. We're all spread around the country. And it was a case of like, like it's a good chance to meet and hang out. And also now being involved in the D&D world and role-playing world, having that immersive role-playing experience. Because when we weren't properly role playing when we were like teenagers, we were just there to drink beer and be like, oh, there's girls here. Oh, hi. Because we were teenage nerdy boys. But exactly. Oh, hi. But now coming back to it as an adult, like it was that appreciation of the world and the writing and meeting loads of new people and like just being in this very, very immersive experience was mind-blowing. So and then pretty much ever since, like that was the first Empire event we went to, and then we just kept coming back. So is it just Empire that you've been playing
at the moment? About the moment, you're looking at doing any more? Because Empire takes up a lot of time.
That's the big problem, right? I'm sure you guys know as well. Like it's Empire for me is already 4 weekends a year. My D&D show is on a Sunday, so that's like 4 Sundays we have to either plan around or miss out and things like that. So trying to find the time is always quite tricky. I'd love to do more. Like I would love to try stuff that's very different to Empire. One system or I guess like range of systems. I don't know if you've spoken to Johnny and Kitty who run iLARP.
No, we hear they're nice folks and they run good games.
We're desperate to try some iLARP. There's a few of them that look absolutely incredible and like right up our street. Which iLARPs was it that you were looking at?
Well, honestly, I think for me it's like I love hearing about all their one shots, and I don't think that I just want to kind of give something a go, right? Like go in there. I was going to go to one of their, I think their 5 Kingdoms, their fancy one, but I've had friends of mine recommending their like Wild West one. They've done like a lot of like horror ones. I was so gutted that I missed out on doing their sort of like pastiche of the Mummy, like the horror pulp kind of like one that they did. I know, right? You guys are making the same faces I did. So they did like a kind of like a jungle island kind of making a 1920s movie mummy.
Yeah, I remember reading one, and you could be like a camera person or an actor or a security person. I was like, that sounds
writer
amazing.
and costume designer, and they did all of this stuff and like. Again, amazing. Everybody puts in a billion effort, for the costumes and the props. And I think for me as well, it's like Johnny and Kitty and like the regular crew that they have there. They're all people that I've gotten to know really well in Empire. And they've always been like role players that I admire greatly because they really invest themselves in the character and the world. And so knowing that those folks are running a full game where they're the NPCs and they're writing the story, I'm like, those guys are going to put on an amazing game. Like, they're going to do a great job, and they're genuinely lovely people. Johnny's somebody who I've gotten on with very, very well for a long time. My previous Empire characters, Sigvald and Vito, were like bros. We were combat bros. So yeah, it was a real good time. But so I'd love to try out some of their stuff, because I know it's a bit more of a narrative focused game as well.
Yeah, especially a smaller system as well, because it sounds like you did like Curious Pastime's quite big, isn't it? Like, it's
I think it's the big three that I know is like Lorien Trust, Empire, and then Curious Pastimes. I don't, but also I'm not. It's one of those funny things. Despite the effect that the stuff I did for Empire has had, I'm not really that like into the LARP scene on a wider scale. Like, I don't really know the other systems that are out there. You know, I only know stuff because I've met the people at Empire or whatever who've told me about it.
It's
like, I'm really kind of separated.
Yeah, it's a small community, and the thing is with the ILARP ones, it's that the tickets go like hotcakes.
Right, because it's like a smaller scale, so you're getting a much more condensed, much more focused experience. But that means that there's like 80 player tickets, and that's when it's gone. Whereas Empire, they're like more players, come more. We can never have too many. Bring them all in. Soon we will own land, and you can all come. You know, they constantly want more. But whereas like something smaller, I like, just because of the nature of the game, right? They have custom storylines. They make sure that everybody's getting plot, everybody's getting game. They can't really do that, right? And it's just the scale of it all. Like, you know, PD's been running for a while.
No, I would love to go and, like you say, have that different experience, because Empire is very special, but it would be interesting to do, like you say, a bit more of a focused kind of like smaller player based, larger crew type thing. I would love to kind of give that thing a go.
Well, and both of you guys are D&D and TTRPG players, right? So it's like, for me, I see those smaller LARPs being almost a bit like that, where it's like you have GMs who are the staff and the writers and the people running it, and they are sculpting a story specifically for you to play. Whereas something like Empire is a bit more of a sandbox. It's like, hey, we've got this cool world, and we're gonna make stuff happen in it. But it's really up to you to go and find and do what you want to do, and all that kind of stuff. And for me, that actually suits me quite well, because one thing that I've come to know over the sort of, I think it's been like 5-6 years I've been doing Empire, is I hate responsibility, and I hate having to go out there and like, for me, Empire is a vacation. Like, I go there to just vibes and chill and enjoy things. And when it's stressful because like there's expectations, I'm just like, nah.
Yeah, no, I can totally get that. I can totally get that. Some people, because I'm like, they're like, oh, what part of the game are you interested in? I'm like, oh, maybe, you know, military again. Oh, general. I'm like, I don't know. That seemed like a lot of work.
Says, sorry, coming from the two people that at their very first event were like, yeah, I'll put myself in for the general election of like to be a general.
I was just like, okay, I guess this is the name of the game. We went in like intentionally very blind to the game, because that's the type of role play I like to do in TTRPGs. I prefer to be like, oh yeah, let's do an impromptu game. Let's just make up a character. And so I, on purpose, didn't read much of the wiki. So I went into that. They're like, oh, we need someone to run for general. I'm like, cool, I'll do it. And I didn't know. I didn't know the names of the armies. I didn't know the names of the virtues. It's a good learning experience though.
But man, if there's a Dornish thing to do, it's first time in Anvil, make me a general. Like that's, you know.
Well, it was such a weird experience, wasn't it? I mean, like you kind of Oliver as Godric put himself out there and really went for it, and it was strange because I think the pair of us ended up meeting so many people so quickly, even though that first sort of 20 minutes, like the first 20 minutes of our first game, I think I was just like a deer in headlights the entire time. Which is when I actually met yourself in character. And I just remember it all being a blur of being like, I can't remember what my name is or how I'm supposed to speak, but all these people are coming up and they're being friendly and offering game, and okay, this is fine.
Honestly, you know, it from our experience, because you know it was me and Tom, like, you know, we were both there, and like I was playing my brand new character in a brand new nation, didn't really know anybody, had like knew a couple of people, but they weren't there or they weren't around. And you know, Tom, it was his first time coming back to Empire after a long, you know, several years hiatus.
Oh, really?
And we literally were like, we saw you, like, you know, Oliver Godric go in for general, and you sort of stood there with him. And I just remember commenting like, wow, like the balls to come in and do that. And so we were like, we gotta go and talk to those guys. We gotta go and like hang out with them and chat to them. Yeah. And so and I think that a lot of other people had the same impression where they were like, oh, they're really throwing themselves in there. Let's go and like, talk to them, get to know them, support them, show them the game. Like, and it's wonderful to see, which was very different to my experience in another nation. Like it didn't have that same feeling. Yeah. Like coming into Dawn, I have been so happy with just the vibe of the nation in general. And it feels a lot more sort of like encouraging and supportive and like, hey, let's all help each other do cool stuff, which is really nice.
That start in Dawn seems quite unique. So I'm interested in this because we've spoken to a lot of people that have they have like a national meeting, like the marches of the muster and the Navarra have the national standing. And I was like, oh yeah, we don't have anything like that. And I was kind of going, we should have something like that. But after thinking about it, what's very unique about Dawn that I found out is that when timing comes, it is like being just dropped in a movie around that glory square. That's what we found. That's probably why we were just we scattered like rabbits in a headlight and just went, oh, let's do something, because we didn't even know timing. We were like, is there, because it was our first time LARPing, we're like, did they ring a bell? Did they do something?
You wouldn't know, right? You have no idea.
But then people just started talking. I was like, well, people are doing stuff. Okay, I guess we better do stuff.
So somebody came up to me like, oh, but what is your name? Robert, Aaron, I don't know. Is this time?
It is make-believe time. Oh God. Yeah. It's such a funny one. Like it's so funny to know people who have that experience, because like having gone so much now and brought a lot of new people in myself, like we do a little thing now in the house where, because we've had quite a few new people join us, where I basically am like, right, because I'm the only one who normally stays in Dawn IC, I say, go away at 5 o'clock, come to the tent. And then when they arrive, I show them that I'm in character, and that's like the new players are like, oh, right, we're in character now. And it's like a nice way of like, I'll greet them like as they arrive to our group, and that's like the way and then we have like a little kind of house chat where it's like, oh, let's all quickly talk about some of the things we're going to do, but in an in-character way, so we've kind of all synced up and we've got reasons to go and do stuff. And that's always like worked quite well as like right, it's in character time now, let's go.
And the preparation you do for your new character, that must give you like a hard start, because for me it's just like, I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm in a shirt, and from time out to time in, there's not really much difference in the way.
Well, it's funny, like because like Robin, I don't know how long it takes you to get ready and stuff like that, but like I have now experienced both ends of the scale, because my previous character Sigvald was a case of tunic stuff, let's go, I'm in character, woo.
Yeah, that's it.
Not so much the case anymore. It's kind of it is a ritual, and it's also interesting because for me, my current character, I guess I should sort of say, I'm sure that I think you guys said that you're going to do an intro, but I'm currently playing a character, Morrigan Morter, who is a female character, like fully like in character female character. Whole story there about gender exploration and stuff. That's a background to that, but she is very iconically feminine, and that was intentionally in the design of the character, the costume, everything. Like it is a very, very hyper feminine character, and as part of that, becoming that character, I wanted to play a character that was much more immersive. And like, previously in my previous character, I would always slip back into Mark, and it was me and my friends, and we would jump out to talk OC. And I was like, man, I really want to be more, involved in the role play. I want to immerse myself in the world and the role play more. Hey, what's a great way of doing that? Well, like complete transformation of character. And the getting ready part is essential to that, because it is a literal transformation of like going from this guy to her. And it's like the makeup, the wig, the dress, everything else going under it, but it's a mental transformation as well, and part of that is the getting ready. I don't know how long it takes you, Robin, but I think it's like, for me, it's like I can do it in about two and a bit hours with the whole process. So it's a fair old chunk of time.
That's not that bad.
I'm not too bad anymore. It used to take me a bit longer now that I've actually figured out the order to do things, because my character has antlers and ears, and it took me a while to realize that all my armor had to go on before my antlers, and that took me a long time and a lot of frustration of me holding my arms in the air and being like, Oliver, you need to get these over my antlers.
This is where I leave the tent and just come in when back and then just get out as soon as I can.
runs away from the tent.
Because also, especially in those summer events, that tent got hot. And I imagine you must have suffered as well, Mark, right? Because
do you know, it's so bizarre. Like loads of people talk to me about this because like I have like there's a lot going on, not just the wig and the dress. There's a lot of stuff under the dress that's going on as well, like to add a lot of layers and stuff. But there is just, I don't know what it is. I don't know if my brain is just like, no, you are full of winter magic. You are cold, because I don't really overheat, and I don't know how it happens. Like I'll get warm, like those heat wave summer events, like I'm like, I can't stay in the tent for too long, or like, you know, I am definitely getting hot and sweaty, but I think my body is just like, no, we can't deal with this, shut it down. Just like turn off the heat receptors or something. I don't know what it does, but yeah, for some reason I don't get too hot at all. I don't, or maybe I just adapt to it quickly, I don't know, but like it is it's very bizarre.
This is when we're like, oh, we haven't seen Morgan in a while, is anyone going to check on her? We're opening up the tent door, you're on the ground. I think she's starting to feel the summer. Okay,
it's just like me passed out, just completely dehydrated and passed out somewhere. It's something I think like it's that weird thing of like the last couple of years of LARP have like we've had some gloriously hot sunny events, to the point where I'm like, I need a parasol. Like, I need to have portable shade around with me.
When we talked with Robin, we were like talking. We were like,
I was going to say,
we were thinking about, is there a way we could like make an outdoor, like open air communal getting ready area that's like, we just couldn't figure out how to do it, where we could have like full length mirrors and so people could like stand up outside of the tent while they're getting ready, because man, getting ready in those tents, it's a challenge.
Well, I started like trekking over to the shower blocks and waiting for one of the nice showers to become available so I can go in and do my hair and my makeup there, because otherwise I'm like covered in spirit gum and I'm like, this is horrible. I hate
tell anyone
it.
about the nice showers.
There's no nice showers. There's certainly not a full length mirror.
No showers.
No, it doesn't exist. No. Full length mirror is, by the way, is an actual cheat at Empire. It is like that is the one thing where I'm like, I have a good mirror. I'm like, I need to find a way to take a full length mirror because it is so useful for lots of different things. Not even just getting ready, but like just like being able to like, you know, see everything, like make sure all your equipment's on the right way and not have to like, I put the bloody belt on the wrong side, or like the pouches on the wrong bit and stuff like that.
That's what we were thinking. We were thinking if it was like because then we'd only really need to like take one, and like the entire nation could just like use it. They'd go around the back and be like, I'm just gonna go stand in front of it and make sure my armor's all good. Right.
It feels Dawn-ish as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Listen, like I think like having a sort of outdoor parlor with a full length mirror and a chair for the nobles to sit in, and like a table, like, you know, put on some like you know, just little like things that they can use. Morgan will most certainly be like, anytime I'm over, I'll be like, I'm gonna just borrow this, check everything, because like I am in the constant paranoia of like the wig slipping or like, you know, things like that. So I'm constantly checking that stuff.
Yeah. Especially when people bring like thrones, you know, they're like I managed to bring this entire throne, and it's like, you know, you could have brought, and then they're still looking at these little tiny mirrors, because that's what Robin and I spend most of the time doing, is like crouching down looking at this mirror. Like,
well, I thought I was being a genius, okay, because I got a big clothes rail, and so all our clothes are hung up on a clothing rail, because I was like, do you know what, if it rains, we can dry our clothes.
Get some off the ground.
I attach it to the center pole of the tent, keeps it nice and secure, and it also makes a barrier to your bed, which means we've actually got a nice in character area at the front, and we can show everything behind it. But I got a mirror, and I thought, okay, I'm going to attach the mirror to the pole. The issue is, because of the clothing rail, it's either too high for me or too low for Oliver. So we've got this weird situation where I'm like, do I try and attach it to a hanger or hold it? And it's not working.
It doesn't work.
I'm going to get myself a fancy cod piece, and I can just look at that.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, just look at that. That's all you need to check.
Yeah. How big's your tent, Mark?
I think I've got a 4 meter, but it's got like a little 1 meter porch bit at the front.
Oh yeah, 4 meters
because
not that bad.
Yeah, well, I used to have a small, I had a 3 meter bell when I was over in Wintermark and with Ashenhall and the previous character. But when we moved over, I knew that my tent was pretty much going to be the house tent. And I like having like in character spaces to like bring people in and sit down and stuff. So I got this particular, and it's not, I kind of regret it, because that little porch bit is a pain in the ass. And it means that like, if it does rain, like it does flood quite easily because it doesn't quite fully like zip up and stuff. So I'm kind of looking at like, well, maybe I should look at getting something else and like, selling that one on or something.
Yeah.
But it's quite nice at the moment because it's like the main tent bit I have for myself, and very much like you, Robin, I have like the center pole. I have like these drapes, and on hooks, and so I separate it into two halves. Like all my bed, with all my bedding and stuff is behind that, and then I have my table, which is an essential for me because I need to do makeup stuff. And then all of the sort of like IC stuff and like my closed rail like you have, that's all at the front, which is all separated. And then the porch is done up to be IC. So we've got like the house banner, we've got like chairs, we've got like little tables covered in skulls and candles and roses and stuff like that. And it's quite nice because when it is good weather, people really like sitting in there because it's quite cozy, and we have like the lights and stuff, and it has this very sort of like intimate feel to it, which fits Morrigan especially quite well. So it's like I've had quite a few lovely little sit in my little porch and have little chats with people, which is nice.
It is lovely, your little porch area. It is nice, so, like you said, it's so intimate. But it's intimate but also welcoming at the same time, if that makes sense. I've definitely stopped there a couple of times when I've been like, if it's been like a bit rubbish outside, and I've stopped there to like sort things out and stuff, because I'm like, I can just chill out in here for a bit. And
I leave it open specifically for like people to just come in and sit down and stuff like that. Also, it helps knowing that our house has nothing worth stealing, so I'm just like, you can sit in there if you like. We're poor, we're dirt poor, don't worry about it.
Nice skulls there.
Yeah, that's it. People aren't going to steal my skulls, so as long as they don't take my skulls, I'm fine. But I think that the plan is maybe at some point this year, maybe early. I think probably by this year, because the house is growing quicker than I thought it would. So I think that we're going to look at getting like either a 5-meter bell or a sort of more house tent that is a more sort of generic
square shape,
like open space. And I might still have part of that for myself, or I might just take my balcony, get rid of the balcony bit, and then keep the 4-meter for myself or something like that. But I think upgrading to a big house tent is definitely something that we're looking at doing.
We did not,
especially if people keep asking for tests of metal and joining my house, which was not something I expected to happen anytime soon, and yet in the first year someone was came asking.
Well, I'm sure that someone had a lot of fun in your very dangerous test of metal.
Listen, you play a combat character and you come and ask Morrigan for a test, you're getting a test, you're getting a nice challenge. So.
That was crazy. That was crazy. That worried me more than it worried Aaron out.
Yep. Listen, it's you're gonna start messing around with winter magic and death. You gotta be prepared for what comes.
I tell you what, that was so cool, because it was so, because that's the thing. When the winds, whatever. When they started coming out, everyone was like, oh yeah, it's at night. Oh, it's agreements involved. Oh yeah, it's suicide. And we're like, we're going. They're like,
what actually happened is that came out, and that was terrifying. And a little message popped up in my inbox from you, and I was like, no. Yep. I was like, Oliver, I think we need to go on that.
And it was such a weird coincidence because I wrote that test before I'd seen the winds as well. And then it was just like, oh well, Robin will have fun at this one.
I did.
Yeah, good.
To fight with monster.
Man, that last E4 was just a roller coaster of an event where it was just like bad, good. Everyone's dead, sad. It was just mad.
It was a great end to the year though. Like the play year, it felt like it sucked that so many people died. But yeah, it was a dramatic end. To the year, most definitely.
Yeah, it was definitely one, playing a brand new character, especially such an extreme character as Morrigan is, like having that event and being like losing people that I'd only really met that year and just being like so attached to it and just like, oh God, like I did not expect to be in this position emotionally and immersed, as a character where we are now. So it's going to lead into this year very, very well.
Yeah, well, there was a few of those characters that like just coming into LARP and just coming into the story. There was like characters that were very like well established in our headcanon going to LARP, and it was bizarre losing some of them at the end of that, and was just like, oh wait, so that character's not going to be there next year.
And let me tell you something now, like, because I don't know, like for you guys, this might be your first time experiencing that. It's when you see those characters, when you see those players as different characters, and you have to start mentally going like, that's not so-and-so, that's this other person now. That is like a real, like, man, Like that really again hammers home that like, God, yeah, they can never play that character again. That character is gone forever.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so weird, like experience that I had like a weird delayed grief sort of thing going on, because two of the characters that meant so much to me, they were the two that I met at E1. They were the ones that got me fighting. They were the ones that I stood side by side. One of them, I carried their armor back from the battle, and I was just like in awe. And the event before, I was partying and drinking with one of them. We'd made plans, and I was just, and then when they had gone, and I saw one of them while they were terminal, and it was weird because I didn't know how to react. And I was just like, I said my goodbye. And it wasn't until after the event we got home, and I was like, I'm never going to see him again. It was like really.
It's such a bizarre thing, because it is that, and I talk about this like whenever I talk about LARP, and like people will ask like, oh, the characters die, like, what's that like and stuff. And I'm like, well, you got to remember that like it's very strange. Like for me, I'm a very emotional person anyway, but I get very attached to like narrative more so than real life generally. Like the idea of losing a pretend character probably would not necessarily upset me, but I would get more emotional about it.
Yeah.
And it really is, I think that I've met so many people where they have had that delayed grief. I have it like immediately because I've done it for a while now, but a lot of people I know, it's just like, oh God, they don't know how to act in the moment. And then like the 3 days afterwards, they'll like have that exact same thing of like, fuck, I'm never going to see that character again. That's it. They're gone. Like, I need to think about like, and it really, it can hit you like that. Yeah. I was a friggin' mess. I was just like, I came because it was that Sunday battle, and me and my house were kind of just making our way back, and we were just casually like, oh, let's go wait for, it's about the time the battle's finishing, we'll go wait and we'll go see everybody as they came back. And we started seeing people coming in, and I mean some, me and Tom, who have been going for an Empire for a while, we were like, oh no, this looks bad, this looks really bad. And we had my friend Missy with us, it was her first event, and she was like, "Oh, but they're coming back. They're coming back. I can see them." And I was just like, I had to kind of keep it together because I was like, "Yeah, we don't know, but I kind of know."
Yeah.
And we saw two very, very close friends of Morrigan, Lady Olivia and her friend Kiriel as well, Lord Kiriel. Yep. And they came through the tent, and they were like covered in bandages and blood. And it was just like me and Lucy, who plays Olivia, she basically clocked eyes with me, and I like looked at her, and she just did a very soft shake of her head, and that was it. I was gone. It was like running over, and like I remember it seems so melodramatic now, but at the moment it just felt like the right thing of like, it was how I felt. We literally both like just collapsed to our knees, and I was just like holding her super tight, and I was just like, it was just everywhere. I did discover that I have found the most waterproof eyeliner in the world, because it did not budge. Like I was like crying for like 2 hours, and it was just, it just did not move. So, but man, it was just like floods and floods and floods, and then it just kept happening. And then when we took everybody to the Glory Square, and it's literally like people are laid out in the Glory Square, like, and it was just like, this is a bit real, isn't it?
It was like a movie, and we're like being in a movie.
Oh my God,
like, what? And and then our field marshal was like, just like, did this speech at the end. We're like, oh my God. Yeah. He was like, yeah, we had to step out over our own dead, but we got it done, We
got it done. It's just like, I remember because and it was great for me in a way, because it was very much tied into the stuff that I really wanted Morrigan to be about, like this very much a house about death, but also about life. And I basically have been bringing a chest of black roses with me every time, because House Mortaire is the black garden. We grow black roses. And I sent Killian Tom to go and fetch the roses, and he comes back, and I just go around placing a black rose on every dead body in the Glory Square. And what was great is that I saw other players see me do this, and they were just like, and then that was what snapped them into like the moment of emotion, right? Because it was like, yeah, this black rose, a pretty big deal in Dawn, like, placing that on somebody. But also, I think it was something that I've had a few people tell me about Morrigan, is that she has this surprising warmth and softness. Yeah. And that just like sets people off. Like that sympathy and that empathy just seems to like unlock something. And I've had like some pretty burly blokes and some pretty kind of like, stoic women who have just broken when I've gone over and like, hugged them and stuff like that. And they'll just be like,
yeah. Bloody Morrigan, honestly, I don't cry, I'm not really much of a crier or anything. I tend to kind of keep it together. And honestly, I think it was one of the, was it E3? It might have been E3, I think. And Morgan was like in tears and she hugged me and I was just like, and I could feel these tears. I was like, no.
I love to hear it.
Crying.
I love to hear it. Well, I love to hear. Do more emotions, all of the emotions. Bring them all out. Yeah. Morgan loves them. Delicious. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Sunday as well. It's because it was the Sunday as well, and it was like the end of the event, and it was like the end of the year, and like I already said, that we lost some like long-standing characters as well that made it just like, oh.
It's so bizarre, isn't it? Like, we know it's pretend. I always say this, like, I know it's pretend. You can be in the battle, you're in a fight and you're like, this is all pretend. This is all fake. It doesn't matter. And then you see your buddy go down and they're trapped behind enemy lines. And there is a genuine surge of adrenaline and courage and anger that just wells up in you. And you are just like, I have to save them. But it's not real. Oh, yeah. But like, there's just something that like kind of triggers it all together. And I love that feeling. Yeah. I love the fact that like your brain can be like, this isn't real, but it can feel real. Yeah. And I kind of love that.
In so many different aspects of the game as well. Even just being like, oh yeah, I'm really nervous about going for this senator position. The nerves are real. There's no such thing as the Senate. Like, it doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. Doesn't mean anything.
There's no military council. Why am I getting nervous about speaking to generals? They're not generals.
Yeah. Because it's still like, because to the character is real and you are embodying that character and you're feeling the things that character feels. So it does have that kind of same effect, right? It's the same with the fights. It's the same with loss and everything else. And I think that I think one of the big things that like I always teach new role players, whether it's for D&D or LARP and things like that, is we're all here to do the exact same thing. And quite often we close those parts off. We close off the emotions, we close off the feelings. We try and tell ourselves that like it's being silly. We get anxious about stuff because we're afraid of that judgment, right? We're afraid of people like thinking, oh, what's he crying for? Or well, what's she yelling about and stuff. Whereas we're all here to do the same thing and we're all in the exact same boat. Like nobody's judging anybody here. So it's actually a really safe place to like just be and let go and have that kind of stuff and be that character in that moment.
It totally is. Yeah. Like you were saying, you would get more upset if it were a role play, but like you say, in the real world, you're probably being protective of yourself and guarded of yourself because there's ramifications down the road and you got to go, okay, well, I've got to protect this. But in a LARP space, it's like it's a safe environment to play with those emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole being a safe environment is the only reason that I'm playing Morrigan now, because it was an environment I felt safe to do that in. Not just from a case of like my own safety, but also not upsetting other people and things like that as well. But it was also a case of like, I mean, I still can't really go out in public as the other side of me. I still get very sort of nervous and anxious and scared about that. But at LARP, like it isn't that case. It's a case of like the only reason I can really play Morrigan is because at Empire I feel safe to do so. And I feel that like there isn't a judgment, and there hasn't been. It's one of those wonderful things that like you hear a lot of horror stories about role playing, TTRPGs and role playing communities and like nerds in general, like being quite sort of judgmental or like transphobic and horrible and things like that. And Empire has been nothing but just the most encouraging, supportive, wonderful environment. I've had so many people come up to me who have said things like, you've really inspired me to like start thinking about things myself and like stuff that maybe I wasn't, comfortable or brave enough to do before. And like, you've shown me that like, oh yeah, like it's something that I can do and it's something that I should look into and stuff like that. And that to hear that is just like, oh my God, like
it's a big deal. Yeah.
It's sometimes you just don't know what to say to it. Cause you're just like, I wasn't expecting to do that. I don't know. I'm glad, like happy, like, I don't know. It's a weird thing to talk about, but it is, it's definitely one of those peculiar elements of the hobby that I would never have expected coming into it like 6-7 years ago.
I definitely get that sense at Empire. I definitely get the sense I could walk out the tent as anything and no one would give me a second look, because I've often wanted to, like when we were cosplaying, like cosplay as femme characters.
Yeah,
but I've never. I wouldn't be able to get over it. Even now, I would be like,
be too nervous and anxious,
getting out of the hotel and blah blah blah. I know some people would be really cool, but I feel like at Empire, if I wanted to do something like that, and obviously, people like you, showing us
there's
how
a
it's
few
done
of us
as well.
there's a few folks who do it whether they're fully transgender or they're transitioning or they're just exploring stuff. And it's really sweet. Like we'll see each other and like out of character, like catch up. And I've been asked a lot of makeup tips and things like that. But it's also sometimes like, it was really strange. Like it's sometimes it's the most unexpected people that like will come over to you. I remember that I was in the out of character area by God once. And this must have been like my second event. So I was still, still kind of like, okay, I'm, feeling more comfortable and confident. And this guy, don't know him, never met him, couldn't, not sure if I could even pick him out of a crowd, but like really kind of like big beard, tall, like really masculine, traditional alpha male kind of dude. And I was like, this guy's in Wintermark 100% or Navarre, one of the two. But like he came over and I was like, and I remember being like, oh, okay, do I have to? And he was just like really softly, he was like, can I just say, you look fucking amazing. Your makeup is flawless. I am in such awe of everything you've done. And I just had to come and tell you, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry if this is weird. And I was just like, you just didn't know, but it was just the most unexpected. And it wasn't like, and he just said, just wanted to say that. And then he went off and I was just like, it was just this flyby, just really supportive and encouraging statement from just this guy who I never would have expected it from. And it's just, and that's amazing,
Yeah, like it really is. I mean, it's something that we've been saying to people and everything is that I know that Oliver mentioned cosplay. I mean, cosplay is the main thing we were into for, still are, but we were into quite heavily for a long time. And going into LARP, I had this sort of weird perception where I thought it was going to be similar. And I realized this is a different world. I mean, the cosplay world is lovely, but it's nothing compared to how wonderful and how welcoming this LARP world, and specifically our experiences with Empire. So how welcoming Empire is. And I was like, wow, I'm pretty sure, like I said, you can walk out the tent as anything.
Anyone or anything,
Yeah. Even if your kit's maybe not up to the highest standard, it doesn't matter because you're still going to be encouraged, you're still going to be welcomed, and you're going to be safe, which is one of the big things I find.
Absolutely. And I think that even with the kit stuff, it's also a case of like, when me and my friends, like when I first brought like Chris and Alex to it, and like even when I first started going, like, you don't know any better. You can do it now. I think now that there's a bit more information out there, you can look at the videos, you can look at the pictures, you can see, you can get ideas and come into it. And we've had so many new players come in who have blown us all away with this amazing kit and sets. I mean, the House Brightstone and Dawn, like I still to this day, I was like, I cannot fucking believe this is their first event.
No,
this isn't fair. And I'm still mad about it. But like, when we came, we didn't know what to expect. So our kit was super basic. It didn't really, there wasn't any details there, but all we ever had was like people giving us advice or like, making suggestions or like giving us links to people like, oh, I get my stuff from here. Go and check this out. And it's very, very different. And it's funny because, I was very big into the cosplay scene. I don't know if I've told you guys this, but like I was very big into the cosplay scene long time ago, not so much in the last sort of 10 years. And did all the anime cons, did all the comic cons, did all of that stuff. I used to like host the masquerades and host the cosplay competitions at MCM and stuff like that. And it is very different because it's a very different style of hobby, I think. I think with LARP, you are making clothing. It's not necessarily you're making costume, though. It's like I am making this character that is very personal to me. And it's not just a replica of another character. It's not just to, win a competition or to like show off to, people that love that show or that character. With this, it's a very personal thing of like, this is somebody important to me. And I'm sharing that with everybody here. And I think that there's that shared kind of mindset with everybody of like, this character means a lot to this person. And there's that inherent respect towards that. At least I like to think that that's how most people are at Empire and LARP, I think.
Yeah, no, I think because cosplay is definitely it's like a homage, isn't it, to that your passion for that character, isn't it?
Yeah, or like the craft of like making it look as accurate as possible, or whatever it happens to be. But it's it's just a very different kind of mindset, I think, with stuff like cosplay.
Yeah.
So how long because obviously you played Morrigan this year, and then we had like there was a 2-year, which I'm so glad we got into it before COVID. We got into it like we started looking into it in like the October of 2021. So we didn't have that pain of those 2 years. So did you have Morrigan lined up, or was it because of those 2 years you're like, oh, I had a long time to think, and what
It
am I gonna
was
do?
basically, yeah, sorry, I jump into it. That's the old ADD there, where I'm like, well, I gotta talk. But no, it was, yeah, I mean, so Sigvald, my previous character, I've had 1, 2, 3. Morgan is technically my 4th Empire character. The first 2 literally lasted like 3 events. It was like I played one character for 2 events, I played another character for a 3rd event, and I realized I hated both. I was just like, no. Then I played Sigvald, and Sigvald was like my main. Sigvald was my main Empire character. I did a lot of stuff with Sigvald. I did a lot of stuff involving the actual plot of the game, and did a lot of stuff with other nations. And I think Sigvald is definitely the character that a lot of people kind of got to know and memorize, recognize me as. And I played them. I mean, yeah, like, sort of like 4-ish years, I think I played Sigvald. And then COVID happened, but I was already basically, I was already thinking about moving on from Sigvald. And I had a couple of ideas because he was a character that was, again, I mentioned that I go to Empire for the vibes. I'm not particularly ambitious. I'm not like, I want to be a senator. I want to be a general. I just go there to have fun with my friends. And so Sigvald was made as a character of like, well, what are the things I like to do? I like to fight. I like to have a drink with my mates. And I like to kind of be be a bit of a cocky asshole sometimes. So that's what I did. And I played that up to 11. He was a changeling Viking, changeling Wintermark, Nathan Drake. Sorry, not quite Vikings. But no, he was basically like a Wintermark Nathan Drake changeling. So like an adventuring, swashbuckling, like sailor, basically. And it was a ton of fun, but he was a very shallow character in a way. It was like a very kind of like one-dimensional character of like, this man likes to tell everyone he's amazing, drink a lot, and go on adventures.
Yeah.
And I got to do some fun stuff with that. And luckily, I met some great players who managed to give me some cool role play and give me some cool plot that did develop the character. And he ended up getting he got softened by a Dornish lady that he was in love with, and all this kind of stuff. And that was really where I started to learn more about Dorne. And I was like, I love this nation. I need to be in this nation at some point. This nation was made for me to be in. I love it so much. And yeah, it just reached the point where I was like, I think his story is done. Like, there's nothing I can really do with him now. Like, I would just be doing the same thing. I don't think he would really shape. I don't want to be a general. I don't want to have like a position of authority. I just think that character is done. And then COVID hit, and I was just like, oh, okay, well, this is going to give me a lot of time to think about it and decide what I want to do. And it was kind of a tough decision because my previous group, Ashenhall and Wintermark, I was one of the founding members, and 4 or 5 years we've been playing them. It was a big group. There was like 14, 15. There's like 14, 15 of them, of us, I should say. We had like a big group tent that we'd all pitched in for, and I'd been there the whole time. And it was kind of hard to say goodbye to that. And like, even though, it was a case of like, well, I'm still going to be around. I'm still going to come and hang out and see all you guys, and definitely still going to like come by. There was a part of me which was like, do I want to do this? Like, do I really want to go off and do my own group and be completely on my own? But I think it was that final thing that pushed me over the edge, was that decision of like, well, listen, like Sigvald, I'm still partially Mark, and I'm not really getting the most out of the game and the experience. Yeah. I want to role play more. I want to be more immersed in the world. The best way for me to do that is go move to a different nation and start my own thing and do my own thing. Yeah. And that was really where Morrigan came from. And it was a case of, and then that was like, if I'm going to do this, do I want to go? And I'd been sort of really toying with the idea of a female character for a long time, because it connects to a lot of other stuff going on. Things that I've been doing with cosplay and costumes and photography and stuff. And I was just like, okay, I think I'm going to try it. I said to myself, I'll try it for like an event, see how I get on. And if I hate it, great. I go and do something else. I go back to Ashenhall, whatever. I can always can move on and do other things. And it just so happens to be that like that first event, it was an amazing experience. And I was just like, yeah, this is locked in for sure.
Yeah. What about like, obviously, what about the character concept? Did you always think, oh yeah, she's totally going to be a winter magic enchantress alchemist?
It was really interesting. So I think that like I locked onto this idea. I don't actually even remember where the initial idea for Morrigan came from. But what I do remember is the concept of the whole of House Mortair and Morrigan was Dornish Addams family. And that was always the idea of like, I want to be creepy, but really nice. Yes. And be like the kind of character that everyone's like, oh, fucking what the is that? Like, who's she? Looking like some, wraith stalking around the camps, like being creepy and weird and coming over to people who are dying and talking to them and being bizarre.
Yeah.
But when people got to know her, she's full of warmth and life and love, and just this complete opposite to what, and this is the thing that I've always done. I look at the brief for Empire, or I look at the brief for Dawn, or I look at the brief for Winter, and I'm like, how can I with this? Like, I want to respect it. I'm not going to completely ignore it, but how can I like play with it? How can I do something that is still within the brief, but also is different enough that like makes an interesting character? And that's just something that's, I don't know, that's maybe like the chaos gremlin in me, who's just like, no, I don't want to listen to other people's things. I'm going to do what I want. So I wanted to like find a way of playing with it. And like, Winter, I'd known a little bit about it. I'd done a lot of Magic game stuff with Sigvald, and I was learning more about it. So I was like, yeah, let's pick a Realm of Magic. And it's the old D&D brain coming in. Yeah, Realm of Magic. And like, cool, what can I do with it that would be kind of different? How can I play with it and like turn it on its head and stuff? And like, I came on and I was like, well, Adam's family's all creepy and murder and death and poison. Oh, Winter seems a pretty good fit for something like that.
Yeah, but the brief obviously allows it, right? Because you look at the brief and you're like, what, if I'm going to be an enchantress, Dawn, Summer seems like the one that you might go for, but
right. But how would again, like there's a lot of Dawn, Summer mages in Dawn. Let's do something different. Let's look at the different things. And I'd kind of known a little bit, and I had some friends in Dawn. I was like, how popular is like Winter, and how popular is like the other realms of Magic? And they were like, oh, there's not many Winter mages. I was like, great, that's exactly what I want then. Because it also means that there's a smaller group. You can go to the people who are doing that, and they'll be like, great, more people to help us do the thing we want to do. And like, there's not many of us. Let's all group up and work together. And that's exactly what happened, right?
You don't want everyone doing the same thing, do you?
I mean, it's fine if people do, right? There's a reason that people love tropes and archetypes, and people are like, yep, I want to be a loud summer changeling in Dawn. Absolutely, right? That's one of the iconic parts of the brief, and I can totally see it bringing a lot of people into the nation, right? Look at you guys like, There's nothing wrong with that. It's the same as like when people are like, I'm going to play a dwarf fighter in D&D who loves drinking and fighting. It's like, the reason we love those archetypes is they're fun and they're like really interesting. But it's also fun to kind of go like, but how can I make it? How can I twist it? How can I add a little spin to it or do a little thing to make it a little bit different? And that's just a personal thing I enjoy to do. And I think it helps the character stand out as well.
Because Morrigan is very much a Dawnish noble winter enchantress. Because
I hope so.
She gives off a very different vibe to, like, say, a Varushkan winter magic enchantress. They have a completely different
like you said, she's got that warming sort of thing about her, which is interesting, because at first she seems like, who is this, and you feel a little nervous at first, and then speaking to her, you're like, wow, you're warmer than half the summer people here. This is strange, but you've just told me this story about these roses in your garden and what they can do and how deadly some of these things are, but you're saying it in a way that makes me feel like I could go flower picking there.
Yes. Yes, success. It's lovely to hear that, because like obviously, making the character and speaking to people there, when I first played Morrigan, there was a big worry that she was going to be mistaken for Varushkan or Highguard, that I didn't look Dawnish enough, or that the concept might be just like, well, that's not Dawnish, like, because there are some people who are like, no, brief 100%. So I was worried about that kind of being a thing. And it's I think it was, talking to Aranel and you guys, but then also House Orzel. I had Andrew from House Orzel, the head of House Orzel. It just like, this was out of character. Like we caught up and he was just like seeing like this, our house has has kind of dubious relations with winter and is like, we're very summer. Meeting Morrigan and seeing how warm a winter mage can be is making my character think about a lot of other stuff going on with, and challenging those expectations. And I'm like, yes, that's a great thing. I think that gives other players, I guess that's like a thing that connects it all, right? Is I am a dungeon master, I'm a writer, I'm a designer in my normal life. Those things are like inherently bound into me now. part of the thing I love to do at Empire is give other characters game and also enhance and support other people's game, give them cool things to think about, give them interesting choices. And I think that doing that with Morrigan and again, like playing on those expectations, being somebody who can say, I know you think you know what this is, but let me show you my viewpoint. You might disagree, but this is how I see it. Just gives people that like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Okay. It's fun. It's fun to do that.
Yeah. So are we ever going to see Morrigan on the battlefield, Mark? Or...
Yeah, it's something that I want to do. I mean, I love fighting and battling at Empire. I genuinely love it. But when I came back in and I knew I was going to be playing Morrigan, I said I want to have a year because I'd done it every year, like, you know, every event I'd gone to. Yeah. I would go out to battle when I was incredibly hungover. I went to battle when it was incredibly hot and I refused to wear armor because I was like, it's too hot. If I die, I die. And I went out in a shirt and trousers and I was just like, fuck it. I got 3 hit points base and about 5 unstoppables.
Many people do that. I do that monstering all the time. I think the first event I was like, oh, okay, we monster. I guess I'll put my chainmail back on. After that, I'm just like, no, I'm not having an armored monster ever again. I'm just going to go out in a shirt.
I trousers last time because they were black.
Yeah.
It was too hot.
It was too hot. But it's like when you're playing, especially when I'm doing monstering as well, I'm like, the last thing I want to do is like have loads of hits so that the players are just wailing on me for 20 minutes. I want to go in, maybe hit a couple of people, drop dead so I can sit there, go sit and respawn for 20 minutes and be like, and then go back in. Like, I don't want to be sat there forever. But yeah, like I did a lot of battling and I've tried loads of different styles. You know, I fought with loads of different weapons and I love it. I love it in loads of different forms. But coming back in, part of the like, I want to be more immersed. I want to really get to know this character. I want to role play more. Battling takes a big chunk out of your days, especially on the last day on the Sunday. So I was like, I'm going to do a no year, no battling, basically a minimum of a year with no battling.
Okay.
Now that I'm coming back in, and also the other thing as well is I knew that I was going to potentially be the only member of my house. You know, that's not the case anymore. But now I'm also the main sort of senior leader of my house. And if I die, one of my new players who doesn't really know what's going on might have to be the enchanter or the enchantress. And they're like, no, we don't want to do that. So there's this kind of like big thing of like, if Morrigan dies, it's kind of like, there's a lot of other issues to concern myself with beyond just the character death. But I do want to get back to it. And I really want to I want to kind of get either stuck into like battle mage stuff, like coming in like a proper sorceress and like paralyzing and, you know, doing all sorts of horrible, nasty stuff. Or the other one, and Robin and I think we briefly talked about this idea as well, is like I've got a ton of armor and things like that, and come back in with like come back in as like a black, you know, lady Black Knight kind of vibes. Kind of coming into the battlefield. But what I think I've done now, I think it's more than likely that if Morrigan goes to battle, it will be as some sort of mage, because I have my next character planned, and he is going to be a proper like armor wearing fighty man again. So
yeah. But it'd be just so epic to see like Morrigan, someone who you think is maybe non-combat, and then then one day goes right. Let's
listen. There's a winter ritual which basically turns a mage's staff into a scythe that can call impale, and I want to get that and just get topped up on mana and just watch as all of these orc skirmishers are like, get the mages, and they run up and I'm just like, impale like, and I'm just swinging my staff around like a scythe and just being a badass. I want that to happen one day.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like being like, oh no, it'll be fine. Let's go to battle. RNL will protect you. And you're saying that, I'm like, you can protect RNL.
No, I will definitely need the protection. I'll have like 3 hit points and like nothing to protect me. So you just need to like stand in the way of the blows for me.
I will be your shield.
Yeah. Well, we've got a couple now because my friend Sue, who was in Ashenhall with me, her character sadly died beginning of this year. Again, a character that she was really keen to, but she was like, you know what? I kind of feel the same as you. I've done that character. I've played that character. I want to try something new. I want to go and do something new. and her partner was off doing NPC crew stuff. So she was kind of like, yeah, I kind of want to try something new. And she's always like, as soon as I revealed the design for Morrigan, she was just like, I love it so much. I love this just whole look. I love your house. I love everything about it. And so I said to her, I was like, well, obviously I know that you've got friends in Wintermark and you've got friends everywhere. But if you do want to come and join us, you'd be more than welcome. Mm-hmm. And so she's now joined us. And I think she's only done like half an event as that character now. But it means that Aranel has like a battle sister, Cerinthe. So Susan plays Cerinthe. She's like a Naga. So she's only been around Mortaire for about half an event. But it means that Aranel's going to come in and potentially you're going to have a battle sister to go into fighting with. So
I was kind of counting on having some fighty people from House Mortaire. We were kind of counting on.
We need them because we've got the starts of a lance as well. By the way.
Oh, very good, very good. Yeah.
So,
well, I think we've right now House Mortaire is like mainly healers. It's like everybody's either a healer or an alchemist. Yeah,
especially if I'm in charge, we need.
We really need healers in this lance.
Yeah. So you can. I think House Mortaire can provide, but I think it's probably going to be because I want to be able to get like Battle Mage and I need like XP and stuff like that. So it's probably like maybe the last 2 events of this year I will start coming to battle, but definitely want to get back into it at some point. I miss it.
Yeah, I had an inkling of that those were the reasons why you hadn't, you wanted to explore that with Morrigan, but it sounded like your last character was quite fighting. I just wondered whether you missed it or not.
So much. And I do miss it. I mean, like my previous character Sigvold, this was before you guys joined, but they did this great tournament, the summer college tournament. I think we did it in Dawn this year with all the battle mages. Mm-hmm. The time they did it before, it was just any fighters, teams of 3. And it was great because it was all the Summer Eternals pick champions. And, you had the Eleonaris team, all Dornish. I think they were all from Durondal and Orzel. Like they were like a proper powerhouse team. You had like everybody kind of coming in.
you want characters.
Yeah. Oh, God. And then the Summer Eternal that Sigvald was like doing all these crazy adventures for, Rhiannos, which is the Eternal of Adventure, basically, and like was such a big part of that character's thing, was chosen as a champion for that. But it was the only team that had champions from all different nations. So it was like a little D&D party. We had like Vito from the Brass Coast as like the warrior with a massive shield and axe and armor. Nice. Then you had Maximilian, who was from Dawn, who was like a battle mage, proper glorious, like blonde flowing hair, kind of glorious looking mage. And then you had Nathan Drake, the Viking rogue, basically kind of like with dual swords, because I was an ambi fighter, coming in. And we were like, and everybody, when we walked in, everybody was like kind of laughing at us because everybody else was like full clank, pole arms, they were like ready to go. And there's like a guy in battle mage armor, me in like leathers with like 2 swords. They were like, no way. And it was one of the coolest things I've ever done. It was like a proper spectacle. It was like WWE because it was like it was like all against each other, but people were teaming up. People were like backstabbing each other. And we were the underdog, 100%. Everybody was like, they're going out first. And me and Vito had done a lot of fighting. Poor Maximilian basically got dropped in like the first encounter, but he was like amazing about it. He had like his arm cleaved. And so he was running around and he got me to feed him a potion. So he got his arm back and he was using and then just immediately got dropped again. It was kind of funny, but it got down to just like me and Vito. And we just had done a lot of fighting. We knew how to fight well as a team. We'd done a lot of fighting together and we lasted in. It was us versus Orzel and Durondal in this final battle. It was like, it was them versus us. And they were like at the point where like they had been like really stocked up on potions and magic items, and they were like, we're getting pretty like this is like they might win, and like it got pretty close. Really? And there was a great moment where I think it was me and then one of the Durondals, and he had like a sword and shield, and I'm there with my 2 ambis. And it was just like, we were just parrying. It was like neither of us could land a hit. Like he would go strike me and I'd be parrying, but I'd be trying to strike. He'd be getting the shield. And we had that going for like a minute. And it was like back and forth, back and forth. The crowd are going nuts. Vito's like holding the other 2 off with this massive shield. And eventually we get taken down. But it was like the first time in my life, I was like, I feel like a D&D character. I feel like I am like, it was, I don't know, it just kind of got into this flow of movement. And there's a great shot of me like literally jump striking to like get a hit in. Like I'm like, whoa, bam, kind of like thing leaping to the side. And it just is this super cool action shot. And it was just I was like, that's why I fucking love like the combat in LARP, because it's the closest I'm ever going to get to stuff like that. Or like being surrounded by like 200 orcs and you're just like, let's fucking go.
Yeah, it's I don't think you can get that anywhere else. Can you? Not even like unless unless video games make like a massive stride forward in like VR or something.
Stuff,
there's no way you can get that immersion even from like the best role play video games. No way.
And I always say it like whenever I talk about LARP, because inevitably with the kind of crew that I hang out with, they're all like nerds and creators and video gamers. Like if we're at the pub, somebody will be like, oh, have you got any LARP planned this year? And I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to it. And then they'll start asking questions, right? And I go into my pitch of like, oh, you want to give it a go? But we talk, and I end up talking about the combat, and I said like it's weird, like because people have seen videos of LARP combat, or they've seen the memes of like lightning bolt and stuff like that, and slappy swords and stuff. And I'm like, the thing is like when you're looking at it from the outside, it probably does look a bit silly, but when you're there in the moment and you're surrounded and there's like 400 armored, everybody's in like armor, stood in lines, like you're in an army, and then you're facing off against 5,000 orcs, and they got the full mask, the full armor, they're all with their weapons, and then you get into that melee. You don't hear the little squeaky latex noises. You don't really notice that like it's people shouting words and like you're falling down or you're keeping a track of hit points in your head and stuff like that. You don't notice any of that stuff, because in that moment, what you're in a battle and you're fighting for your life, and you can hear everyone shouting and calling for medics, and the orcs are yelling at you, and you're trying to parry blows. That's the bit that you remember. And that's the feeling in it, right? Yeah.
And you get every stage of it as well. It's not just like, oh, you plug in a video game, we're going to combat, and it's just the battle, and then you go back to the hub. It's like no, you get the getting ready, putting your stuff on, going and then everyone's talking, being like, oh, this is going to be a tough one. This is going to be I don't know how we're going to do this, and then you get the walking to the gate, and then you get the muster, and then you get the walking over the field, and you see the enemy in the trees, and you're like, oh,
singing your war songs along with your allies around you, getting like hyped up, ready to go. This full experience. It's just like, honestly, it's something that there's a lot of people that I've been trying to convince to come into LARP, and a lot of them have said the same thing of, I don't think I could go fighting, and I'm always like, oh, you don't have to, but please try it at least once, because honestly, I was a person who was a little bit nervous walking from like the supermarket to my car by myself before this, and the experience of running at a large mask person in armor with my swords and just screaming at them is something that I don't think anything would give you that feeling.
It's empowering. It's very empowering. It makes you realize that you're capable of a lot more, right? I always say to people, like, because I get a lot of people who say the exact same thing, like, I'm not sure if I'd want to do the fighting. I say, I would say go and be a monster, because it doesn't matter. You can get knocked down, and if you get bored or tired, or if you don't like it, you can leave. That's totally fine. You're not locked into it. My partner Nina, she's not really a role player. She doesn't come to LARP anymore, but she came along to kind of give it a go and hang out and see people. And she was like, I'm not going to do the fighting. I was like, well, do you want to do the monstering, like be an orc? And she was like, yeah, maybe. That kind of sounds kind of fun. I was like, cool. I gave her my spear. Right, I have a big stab safe spear. I gave that because she's little. She's a lot shorter than me. I was like, you're going to need some reach. You take this. So she took this spear. She didn't even wear the armor because they didn't have any that would actually fit her, because it was all too big. So she just went in there with an orc mask and like a black tunic on. And she came out of it and she was like, that was one of the most fun things I've ever done. And she was just basically, and she got she never role plays. She doesn't do any of the role playing. And she's there going like, come on then. And she's doing like a silly orc voice and stuff. And she's like in between the orc's legs, whacking the spear around, hitting the legs of all like the Dornish knights and stuff, and they can't get her because she's behind some big lad with a shield. And she was just like, it was the most fun thing. I felt super kind of, it just didn't, it just had that feeling of like being a load of fun. And that made, and everybody else I know who have done it, they do monstering first, and then that kind of gives them the confidence next time to be like, maybe I could do a battle, like maybe I can go to battle on my main character and stuff.
I can't imagine. I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone that doesn't like. Most people I speak to who LARP, who don't go onto the battlefield, just go, oh, I don't go on because I'm like, I have
health issues,
or I've got I'm too busy in the game to actually go out and do it, or But I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone that'd be like, oh yeah, I don't do it because I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, and even if they did, it's like, that's totally fair enough, right? Like, it's like there's some people, it might be very stressful, it might be anxiety ridden, stuff like that. But I think that there's almost a part of it because you have a purpose as well. Like, if you're going to, maybe you don't want to be in the front lines, you want to be a healer. you still have some of that tension, you still have some of that exhilaration and that excitement, but you're at a sort of distance to it all. Like you're worried about it because you can see like we're going to have to deal with that, or those orcs are getting close, we might have to run away. You still have some of that tension and that excitement without necessarily the
healers are the bravest ones, I tell you on that. I know you weren't in that Sunday scrap, Mark, but honestly, like we had like a load of healers. Just a load of them, and it's just like we were being kind of encircled, but I'm like, we're in armor and we've got shields. Like behind us, there's just a load of unarmed people that are just healing. You know, just like if this goes wrong, we're all done for.
It's because like they're just so focused, right? They're like, we've got 5 people down. I've got to get these people up. They don't see what's going on, what you can see. They're just seeing triage, right? They're like, I gotta get this guy up, I gotta get this guy up, you know.
Like usually they're a bit further back, but in that battle it wasn't possible for them to be any further back. And I think it was maybe the 5th or the 6th time that Godric went down and had to get healed that we tracked him back over, and it got to a point where I was like, oh, the line is actually now a countable number of meters away from these healers. And I was like, okay, I'm in full heavy armor. I'm just going to like position my body over this healer because I can take it. And they have got no armor on, and they're trying to heal a load of Dawnish knights, and we kind of need them up.
It's just one of those wonderful things of like, I think that like, again, like you said, there's no other experience like it, and no matter what role you're in, like you're never going to get that experience anywhere really else. So
no. Also, like you were saying, like, you know, when, you know, as Morrigan, you came up, they should be coming back by now. That's one of my other favorite immersive parts of the battles, is coming back home to Anvil, having people that stayed home, you know, because then they're like, oh, and they're concerned, and they're like, what happened? What's this? What's that? So it's not just like, oh yeah, we went out and we did a bit of paintball and we came back and that's kind of it. It's you come back and you're like, oh, and then you get to role play out what happened in the battle, and there's a hospital going on.
Oh yeah, I mean, because it was, I forgot about that moment actually, because Godric had a really scary injury and had to go to hospital, but we carried on the role play back to Dawn. So he's got his arm over my shoulders and he's kind of walking like that, and I'm holding him as we're walking through, and a few people gave us a look, and I didn't realize what the look actually meant. I was just like shaking my head like, silly Godric.
And everyone's just like, he's dead, he's dying, he's dying today.
He's dead. I'm like
so funny. Yeah, it's a great moment. I think that's the thing, is it's about creating moments, right? That's the real secret to LARP, is like creating those moments like that. When you have like something happens in the game that gives you something to talk about or gives you something to like react to. That's my favorite shit. I love that stuff, even if it's stressful at the time. But no more responsibility. That's one thing I'm like, no more.
Because you had a hat, didn't you? You had a hat from like
I was, you know, the wonderful folks in house. God, my LARP brain is completely gone. Nope,
what
gone.
type of house? What, Dawnish House?
Red and black.
Ramis.
Thank you, House Ramis. My brain just completely went there. House Ramis. You know, gotcha. It was so funny speaking to them afterwards and speaking to them out of character, because they literally saw Morrigan and were like, we will make them our friend. And they were like, become friends. And so they were wonderful to like help me get this hat, like, which is kind of like a ceremonial hat, but maybe Empire, maybe PD want to do more with it in the future. But I wasn't expecting it, because my genuine thought was like, I'm going to be on my own for this year. I'm not going to have, I'm just going to be getting to know everybody. This is a new nation. I don't know anybody. Last thing I bloody expected was to get given this position. I'm glad that they gave that to me, and I'm ever so grateful for it, because it's created some great game, and I've gotten to see parts of the game I didn't know. I am very happy to be passing that torch on at E1, because it's just, again, I'm like, you know what? And I'm glad I had the opportunity. I'm glad I tried it. This is not for me. I know where my level of comfort with responsibility is. And I think like when I go to Empire, I'm like, I do not want responsibility. I just want want vibes. I want vibes and chill. Yeah. And that's all I'm looking for.
And is that more so like, is that in the field, or is that more like, because when you do have those hats, like in downtime, people want to speak
Oh
to
yeah,
you, right?
oh yeah. I had like people wanting like sending letters, which I love. I love doing like icy letters and making plans and talking about things going forward. It's honestly for me, it's like the stuff in the field. It's when you like, I think it was like E2 and E3, when I had the Night Protector role, and it would be like time in, like it's literally 1 minute past 5, and somebody would be outside my tent as I'm still like putting my wig on, and somebody's like, "Is Lady Morrigan there? We need the Night Protector for something." And I'd be like, I've literally not had any time to like get in, and I'm like, "I'll be there in a minute, thank you." And it's just and then you come out, and it's like, and it's go. It's like, oh yeah, there's these 3 Death Knights that are arriving, and we need to go and meet them now. And I'm like, okay, and then it's just that immediate kind of pressure, because for me, I don't ever want to. My biggest fear, because I love giving game to people, is my biggest fear is taking game away or ruining game for somebody else. Like if I cock up and I make a mistake, or if I do the wrong thing and that's going to interrupt or ruin or affect somebody else's game, that's just, I get too anxious about it. I'm like, and I'm sure that those people are like, no, that's fine, it creates more game, but I'm like, I don't want that,
especially if you're struggling to be 100% invested in this, you know, especially if you're like, oh crap, I haven't actually organized to do that, or I'm supposed to do that this event and I totally forgot, you know.
I mean, that's the other thing, right, is like you mix it in with like my ADD and like all of my other stuff, where like I forget stuff all the time, and like, you know, I'll come in and be like, oh god, that person wanted to, what was their name again, like, oh, it's just it's a lot for me. And that's just my personal take on it. Like, and I'm glad, what I want to see more of is more passing of roles and titles and things like that, because I think that, like, you know, giving people a chance to try it and see if they like it is such a key thing. Because now I know, like, I was thinking about it, I had some, you know, people talking to me about like, oh, you know, I think Morrigan would make a really good senator, and I was like, oh, maybe. I hadn't really thought about it. Now I know, absolutely not. Like, I'm like, no. I'm enjoying being a coven leader. That's kind of okay, because I feel like that's like being a theater director, and like I'm like making little plays, and that's really fun. I like that. That's not too much responsibility.
So how do covens work? They're like this, like the magic game, right? So
it's basically like your little magic gang. And if you have a coven, you can do more powerful rituals, because rituals are all about like, you've got to increase the magnitude of, you know, each ritual has a different level of power that it requires to cast, and it's very difficult as a solo player to hit big numbers. You can do it. I know a couple of players who can get crazy like individual magic power magnitude, but in general you have to have a coven, and then the more of you together, you all kind of contribute your magical skill together, and you can do cooler awesome rituals. So you're gonna kind of gotta group up to do stuff, and that's fun, because like rituals also involve like performance, right? You have to normally do like, I think it's between 2 and 10 minutes. Most rituals are 2 minutes, some of them are a bit longer, some of them are about 2 to 10 minutes, you know, it varies. But you actually do a performance, you have to like do a thing, and like for some folks that's just reading off like a kind of pre-prepared speech, or, you know, playing some music or doing something like that. But for me, that's, you know, being a theater kid and coming from like, you know, doing like stage shows and stuff like that, and presenting and performing, that's 100% my jam. I love that stuff. So that's actually the fun bit.
Do you prepare? Because I've witnessed some rituals and been a part of some rituals, and sometimes people come off with this stuff, and you're just like, there's no way that's like improv. Surely not. It's
amazing what some people can do. We've done one ritual so far, because we only really formed the coven just before E4, but we did Whispers Through the Black Gate, which is basically a ritual to call a soul back to Anvil temporarily. It's like an echo of their soul, supposedly. I don't know. There's a lot of theoretical stuff that the Empire lore people be like, technically it's this. As far as I'm concerned, call ghost to have a chat is basically the ritual. And we did it for some Wintermark characters, friends of ours, is in fact my friend Sue and Steve, their characters, to basically come back and say goodbye, because they didn't get a chance to. They died in the battlefield. They didn't get to say goodbye to everybody. So that's like such a House Mortaire ritual. It's just like, absolutely necromancy, but kind of nice necromancy. So like we did this ritual to bring them back, and it was really fun. We did prep a little bit of it. There's a little bit of improv involved, but it was we tied it very much into like the beliefs of the house and winter magic and stuff like that, and it was really cool. People seem to like it. It's definitely something I want to get better at. We've only done the one, but it's definitely something I want to try and do more of.
That's just it, yeah, because I mean, there was some rituals like, oh my god, that the role play and immersion is spot on, but then they're like, oh yeah, this is like I've done like 30 rituals this event, just like, oh, well, you're practice then. Yeah.
Oh man, that's the thing is like I'm always in awe. Like there are people at Empire who like do the magic game, right? And I think that there are two very different approaches to it. I'm very much in the camp of like, I'm here to do magic and like do drama and do crazy cool things that are going to have an effect on the world. And then you have the Excellomancers who are like, I have calculated the exact perfect ratio. We need 5 people to do to be participants in this because it's the most cost-effective way, and it's going to give us the most military power to this army in this location, which is going to do this. We need, and it's like that, and I'm like, I am in awe of that ability because that is so far. I'm like, no, I'm here to be a showman. Like that's what I'm there to do.
Yeah.
But there are people who have got that stuff locked down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've definitely experienced both. I would say actually we have definitely experienced. Only a few. We kind of got to see like a few rituals. We got to watch some. We got to be part of some, and I think that really next year, whatever. I think that's going to be something that would be really cool to be a bit part of, and to actually.
You don't get a choice. just so you know, Robin, with the decisions that you have made as your character, you ain't getting a choice. Like, I don't care that if your magic can do whether your character can do magic or not, you're being in these rituals to help us do stuff. So,
yes, my lady.
Yeah, that's a correct answer. Correct answer. I mean, technically, once you're a noble, you can technically you don't have to do what I tell you, but
always do what Lady Morgan tells you.
It's so wonderful and so sweet. I don't know how this has happened. I genuinely think Morrigan has become more of an iconic character than Sigvald was, and it really does have like some fanboys and fangirls, which I love. I think is amazing.
Robin looking good.
Robin. And
really?
It's just honestly, I never expected. I was just like, but people have like come up and said like, oh my god, like we can see you a mile away, and people are like, oh, that's the Dornish necromancer lady and stuff like that. I'm like, oh Christ, that's like 100% what I wanted. So I'm super pleased with that. But it's just amazing. My favorite thing is one of the Rusty Compass. I can't remember which one. Oh, what's his name? Can't remember. But one of the Rusty Compass. They are playing up that they are like absolutely in love with Morrigan. and his name's he's messaged me on like he's messaged me out to say, hey, I just want to check, is this okay? I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but like anytime he sees me, he is just like, oh Morrigan, and he comes over and he like gives me gifts, and he's just like constantly playing, and it's so much fun to like play along with that and sort of like kind of like, and like I'll tease like him around everybody else and stuff like that, and it's just a ton of fun to do, and like, it's just such a fun reaction to that character. That's just, I love it so much.
What you playing? So if you want to get rid of the hat, what kind of plans in general, what kind of plans have you got for a just more
for the hat? Well, luckily somebody's told me that they want it, and I'm going to thoroughly support them in going for it. The nice thing with the Knight Protector role is it's kind of out of my hands as well, because it's whoever wins the Dornish tourney of E1 gets to elect the Knight Protector, basically. So it might just well be that another group get a better force and they win the tournament, right? Like that just might completely be out of my hands. And then as long as, they could, I guess they could technically, I don't know if they can elect me without my permission, but I don't know how that would work. But
you're like, no,
I think you can
like
that. I think they can like name someone. From what I understand, I think they can name someone. Then I think you can like, be like, maybe
I say,
not.
I think you should name this person instead. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping. And I imagine that there would be no player at Empire would like make somebody do something they didn't want to do. But my main thing is like, I'm gonna still get a bunch of our allies and get a bunch of people together to fight on my behalf, but on the understanding that I will pass the role to somebody I think should take it over. And very much make the point of like, I don't think any of us should like, it's great if we get somebody who knows what they're doing and can do a good job in the role. We also need to let people have chances to like, have their to try it for themselves, right? Like I did. Like I was given that role. Nobody knew who I was. I kind of want to do the same thing for other people.
Yeah.
So
from my understanding, I think the whole hat thing it seems to be changing, because like from the flip, like you were saying how busy you were with it, and from the flip side, like trying to go and speak to someone with a hat, it's just like, I need to go speak to this, and you end up wasting a lot of time actually. Like going up and being like, I need to speak to they're like, oh, you should go speak to this general. I'm like, okay, I'll go and try and speak.
Is this general in? No, I don't know where he is, actually. I don't know where she's gone. Like, she might be over at the hub, or he might be over there. And you're like, okay, I guess I'll go over there. Yeah. Is this person here? No, okay, back to this.
And then you finally find them, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, I just need to go here, and I'll catch you later on. You never see them again.
It's too much. It's too much for me. It's too much walking around. It's too much trying to do stuff. Like, it's a funny story, and I should have really known that this would be my kind of jam anyway. My second character, which I only played for like one event. I wanted to basically be like a magical PI at Empire. So like I made like a character who's going to be like a wizard detective, and I was going to put little adverts up like I'll investigate crimes for you, and I'll work too much walking. Like it would just be like, this person is got this thing going on. Right, go and speak to this person. Oh, they're not here. Where are they? Don't know. Go and find them. It was me walking around a field a whole day doing nothing. And I was just like, this isn't for me. I don't want to do this.
No. I think they are going to, because I think it has like obviously ramped up. I think the people with hats are so busy now. Because we did a thing with Navarre called the All East Garden. It was the E2. Yeah. It was aimed at like newer players that didn't really know what else to do, but basically they gave us like clues, and you had to go and find the person and get them to give you the clue. The thing is they were all people with like they're all senators, generals, people with hats, and the problem is that we went off and started doing it, and especially on the Friday, everyone's in conclave, in military council, and it was just a lot of walking around.
In fact, I think I pulled you out of a meeting during this time.
You possibly, I don't think you pulled me out of one, but it was like I was doing a thing and you had to come and find me at this thing, and and it's you get it, but it's at the same time it's like this is a lot of pressure. I think it's a lot of pressure to put on somebody if they just want to go and have a good time, right? If somebody's like, no, I enjoy doing this, all the power to them. I hope that's perfect, but it is a lot of pressure, I think, and it's people kind of sometimes maybe forget that. Like they're like, oh, but for my game, I need to speak to this general. I'm like, yeah, well, that general isn't an NPC. They're a player. They've got stuff that they want to go and do, or maybe they're like
weekend. Yeah,
it's their weekend as well. And so I think that there can sometimes be a bit of pressure on people. My friend, I'm very close with, who plays the Archmage of Summer, ex-Arch Luke, who's the head of it, and just like hearing from them, like some of the stuff that they talk about, and sometimes how shirty people can get about like, well, I've been looking for you all day. I've got this very important thing that I need to do. And Luke has to be like, me too. like I have my own shit to do that I'm trying to do on my weekend where I'm pretending to be a wizard. It's people can easily forget that stuff. We get wrapped up in stuff going on, and I think it's something to definitely keep in mind. But it's just passing of the torches, I think, is very important. Like give people a chance to try different stuff. Like I said, I now know that kind of position and responsibility isn't for me, so I want to give that to somebody else.
So you
instead I really like the idea for Morrigan of like being a person that people go to, but it's always down like as a personal choice. It's like a kind of thing of like, oh, you want somebody to talk to about your grief, or you want to talk to somebody who can help you with this thing that you're doing. Like, absolutely come and talk to Morrigan about that, but no pressure to do it because it's going to hinge on something else happening. Right?
Yeah, it's nice just to sit back and have the game be able to kind of wash over you a bit as well. I mean, that's one thing that kind of steers me away from the big hats is like, I wouldn't want to feel guilt if I couldn't make it to an event or something like that. And everyone's like, oh, absolutely. Writing you letters.
We need this general. Yeah, exactly that. And I'm sure I know that they have like adjuncts and they have like seconds and things like that can all help with that stuff. And that's a good opportunity for them to step in and do things. But from what I've seen, it can get a bit like that of like, God, I can't miss this event because I need to be there for this, this, and this. And I'm like, man, this is a weekend in a field to have fun and
it's your holiday.
You're paying to be there. Yeah, exactly. So Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, for me as well, like Morrigan is someone whom I think I can see a lot of people going to speak to, but going to for just general advice as well. And I've noticed that, and I don't know, just when you were saying there about people just coming to find her and ask her about death and things, and I want to see a column in like the Dawnish Herald of like maybe not like an agony ad, but similar, but for Morrigan's, you know.
I that's the kind of stuff.
Send your question to Morrigan. She'll put something in there for you.
That is 100% the kind of stuff I want to do, right? That's the kind of stuff where like I want to set up the House Mortaire tent to have like a little corner, and it's like it's always open, or it's like the little porch that I have. It's like if I'm there, like office hours, like Morrigan is in 10 p.m. till 12 p.m. You come and you sit down and you just have a chat, or if you need to, like, you know, just have somebody to talk to, because that's the kind of person that she is. Like, she's very giving and she's very loving and wants to kind of be there for people, but not every. And this is like a common thing. It's very easy to get caught up in the drama of the big stuff, like the big battles, the big decisions, these big things going on in the life. My favorite stuff is talking to people about the small stuff. Like, I know that you guys have had Mercy, like you've chatted to like Mercy and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things was just having a real, very human, very normal conversation about love and romance and relationships and stuff outside of a conclave. And it was just off the cuff. It was just like, tell me about this, tell me about that. Oh, what do you think about this? And can I get your advice about this kind of thing? It's great little moment, great little character time.
So funny you say that, because when we spoke to Dave, he actually brought up that the best moments aren't what's going on in the plot, and we discussed that. But the best moments are usually individual stories, like when you go back and you're like, oh, what did I do this weekend? You know, but when you get there, you're like, oh, this is happening. Like, you're like, oh, I have no idea about what's happening with this. What's happening in the Barrens? I don't know, and you feel bad that you don't know what's going on. But then when the weekend ends and you start telling stories, and you're like, oh, the good stories aren't the wider campaign. It's those smaller interactions, you know.
The big campaign stuff is what makes the small stuff, kind of gives context to it, right? Like the war itself, none of it, you know, most of us aren't going to really know the details of what's going on or how important it is, but it provides a backdrop of like, well, I'm going to go into this battle tomorrow and I know it's connected to this bigger thing, and then if that person dies in that battle, your character is now connected to this other thing in the same sense. If you ever, I really hope that one thing, like I think that the other thing I would say to that is, there are sometimes you get to do not necessarily plot, but there is some really fun stuff at Empire that only a handful of people really get to do, because it's, you know, limited in the sense that only so many people can go to these special little adventures or go to these, speak to these Eternals and things like that. That stuff, PD does it so bloody well that when you get to go on that stuff, it is a absolute gem of a memory. Probably some of the favorite things I've ever done in Empire, some of the most memorable, coolest stuff I ever did was playing Sigvald and getting wrapped up into a series of like adventures and like things that were happening, where I got to go to what they call the encounter tents, which are basically you're talking like 5 to like 6, like 3 to 6 kind of other players with you in a really big scout tent that has been completely decorated by the PD team to be another location, right? So you go through the Sentinel Gate and you go to another place. And some of that stuff, I really would love to see PD doing more of that, specifically targeted at players who are new or aren't like, don't have hats or, are just, doing other things, because it was so friggin' cool. And I got to take a bunch of players with me that had never done that stuff before as well. And it's just one of those memory things. I'll tell you a couple of them because Sigvald's dead. It doesn't really matter now. So the first one, it was all connected to this big plot with Highguard and Wintermark. And I won't go into these because I don't think this ever got revealed or resolved in the game. So it might still be a thing.
Still be going on.
But it involved basically like a whole multi-part thing. I had to go to the Highguard Egregore and get like some specially sort of consecrated water from them. And then we went on an adventure. It was like a proper, like, get a team of like 4 or 5 of you. You're going to go on like a dungeon adventure, basically. And we got taken to this encounter tent. And it was quite funny. Out of character on the way, the ref is like, just so you know, if you hear a bell ring, everybody takes a point of damage. And we were like, okay, all right. So we get in there, and all I knew going in, all the clues I'd been managed to find was like, you're going to go in and you've got to purify these remains with this water in order to appease this spirit. But it is trapped. It's full of traps. So we were like, okay. So we go in. they put you in the room, and then they close the scout door tent, and it is pitch black in there, like pitch black, except for like they had a couple of little LED lights to create like a greenish, ghoulish glow, but they were hidden, so like you couldn't actually see them. It just created this very slight ambience. And they had filled it with like stone columns, like kind of like movie set stone columns, a big sarcophagus. There was like all sorts of like debris and stuff all around the room, but it was completely pitch black. It was really strong to see. And a couple of us had brought like lights and things like that. And I was like, okay, I think I can see some of the bones. You guys, and it was almost like there was like a little area at the front. And if you guys have ever seen something like the Crystal Maze, it kind of felt a bit like a Crystal Maze thing. So there's like this little area at the front. And I said to the others, I was like, right, you two go over there, you two go here, keep an eye out. I'm going to go up, and just in case anything happens, I'll go up and purify the bones. I can take you, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, cool, let's do that. I go to take a step forward, and my friend Andrew, who's a very good friend of mine, he was one of the original Ashen members. He's like, Sigvald, stop. And he like grabs me as I'm like taking a step forward, and then he points, and we can just see like in a glint of his light something glittering, and there was black string with silver bells crisscrossed around the whole tent.
Oh, traps.
And I was like, they were tripwires, and he was like, stop. And I was like, good call. Like, and then I'm like doing the, entrapment, Catherine Zeta-Jones, like weaving through these tripwires, purifying these bones. I get to the second set of bones, and we hear like they play like this. There must have been speakers, because you hear this kind of like rushing of wind, and the lid of the sarcophagus slides open. No. And a lady dressed like the one from The Ring, like Ring Girl, with like the black hair and like a white suac coat. Kind of comes out of it. And I'm like pressed up against this thing, and she can't see me. Like I'm out of her field of view. Like if she had like a cone of vision, I'd be just out of it. And so she starts speaking to the others, like warning them to like stay away. You need to leave. And they're like, Spirit, like we are winter folk. Like we want to know your story. Like, why are you here? Why did you seal your tomb? And then she starts telling her story. And as and then she would get angry, but as soon as I would purify the next set of her remains, she would calm down. So like I'm having to like move around. And if I hit one of these things, she's going to know I'm there. So I'm like trying to maneuver around her and these tripwires and do all this stuff. Nice. And she reveals this whole thing to us. And then once it was all cleansed, her spirit dissipates, and we could leave and go from there. Right. One of the coolest things I've ever done. That's amazing. And then I got to do a couple more like that in these like encounter tents. Yeah. I think I can talk about this now a little bit. It was basically it was a heist, and we actually went to a completely different like foreign power. And I'm not going to say who was involved, because I'm pretty sure it was incredibly illegal. Right. But we had to go to like this foreign nation, and we were trying to steal something very important from it. What? And it was like a full-on like puzzle door. There was like multiple puzzles. We had like a giant hourglass, and the in-character NPC that had like gotten us in was like, if this runs out, the guards will be here, and you will probably be killed. You'll be captured and executed, most likely. No chance of being rescued. You will just be gone. So like we have this hourglass, and we are trying to break into this vault, and it was just a whole thing. We got to a point where there was a door, and it was sealed by a chain, and we just could not figure out this lock. And me being the roguish kind of character, I like looked at the referee who's like watching us, and I open up my satchel, and I pull out basically an icy pair of wire clippers, like a forged set of wire clippers and like thieves' tools. And I basically showed them to the ref, and I went, he just kind of went, he just kind of shrugged, like, you do what you want. And I was like, okay, snip, 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 open the door that way, the puzzle. We got in and stuff like that. And it was great. Like the set dressing, it really did look and feel like we were in this other, foreign nation. Like everything was decorated. It was so much work put into it. And there was these NPCs that were playing parts. It was genuinely amazing. And I genuinely think that like, if more people can experience stuff like that, that's something I would love to see PD do more of, like have more options.
Yeah, that sounds
stuff.
Amazing.
Well, that's just it. If you don't hear people telling those stories, you would never know that was going on.
Right, because also like, and this is the problem with like so much of these like little plots that I was doing, you're told like, don't tell anybody about this, like this, you have to keep this as a secret, like blah, blah, blah. You can't tell anybody that you're doing this. And it's like I want to tell people I'm doing it because it's so cool. And like, and it's, you know, it's limited. It's like 5-6 people can do these things at a time. So it's, you know, it unfortunately quite is often the case is like you get players who have been there for a long time. They're invested in story or they're doing stuff. They get these opportunities. Well, they want to take the other people that have been working with them on it, right?
Yeah, that's fair
so
enough.
Which is totally understandable. Like, you know, they've worked towards it, but it does mean that sometimes other people don't get to go on.
And I suppose that they're kind of engrossed in a certain plot and they've been pulling at those threads for a long time. Like,
they deserve it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I definitely want to go speak to this, you know, Eternal because we've done this and we've planned for this tournament, blah blah blah. I suppose they'd have to come up with something else for maybe newer players, like, so if they could maybe...
I think like the little dungeons, like the little adventures that I did, that I would love to see, like, because also so many people are coming into Empire because they play D&D or they play like video games, like getting to go on like that little trapped room encounter, like, and I know that Kitty from LARP, she got to do a very similar thing with like, they had like statues and they were people posing as statues, and if they triggered a trap, the statues would like chop them and stuff like that. You know, doing that kind of adventure-y dungeoneering stuff, I'm like, yes, that's the kind of thing that would be perfect for newer players or players who aren't maybe connected to the plot. But it's the question of how do you get that to them without more experienced players being able to also join in and
exactly.
It, you know?
Maybe, and obviously because there's a lot obviously they wouldn't be able to logistically, I guess they couldn't do it for accommodate everyone. I guess maybe like a randomized player pack, like if you've got...
I mean, that would be a good way of doing it and stuff like that. I mean, the nice thing as well is I think that the players who do have hats, like Archmage Luke was the one who got me involved in a lot of the Rhiannos adventuring stuff, and also would and they always did it in that, like, I will make a statement in Conclave to let people know what's going on, or I will put something in like the IC newspapers to say I need people to come and do this, and I do it on a whoever comes to me, or people come up to me, like people will go seek out Luke and say, hey, I really want to do this cool thing for this Rhiannos Eternal, they sound like a ton of fun, can you help me do that? And Luke's like, absolutely, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you get game. And I know like the Winter Archmage is very similar. Like if you've got something you want to do, you can go to them. I think the big problem is just a lot of players don't know what they can do, right? They don't know what's possible. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one of the best things about us, like speaking to people on this podcast. Actually, like it's people's experiences at Empire, and you're there in the same field, the same weekend, and their experience is just wildly different from ours and everybody else's we had on.
Wild.
You know, you know, some people are trying to you know pass certain like religious laws. Other people are like double agents and they found themselves in precarious positions. Other people are just having a good time on the battlefield. And it's like
some people are just running little tea shops, having a lovely time, just selling cakes and teas. Why not?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just, I love it. I love the fact that it is a truly, like, you can go out there and do some, if you want to make something happen, you can probably can. Yeah. And if you don't want something to happen, you don't have to. Like, you can just choose and pick what you want to do and like what you want to get involved in.
Yeah, but, You don't have to give us any information on your next character idea, but are you, because you were in Wintermark for a while, right? And then you then you moved to Dawn. Is
I'm staying in Dawn.
You staying in Dawn? Yeah, you knew what I was going to ask.
I created House Mortaire. You know, that House Mortaire is my baby. And I want to, you know, play in it. But I want to come in. I will say my next character is still a noble. Like I still want to. I'm going to come back in directly as a noble. I'm not going to start as a knight errant or a yo folk. They will be exceptionally different to Morrigan. That's all I'm going to say. It's. I really want to have the moment. And well, I might talk to Robin about it. OOC, like out of the podcast and without you knowing, Oliver, because it's the kind of thing of like, just so you know, this might happen. And all of the other members, well, actually, no, I don't think I will tell you about it because you're coming in. You're not an existing member of Mortaire. They all know my other character because I've told them like this is a person that the family knows about. They would know who it is.
Okay, yeah.
Aaron L would
type
not.
Of thing. That type
of
thing.
Yeah, and it's I really want to have that moment where like everybody's like, oh God, Morrigan died. Oh, so sad. Really excited to see Mark's new character. And then they'll meet my new character and be like, I cannot believe you played Morrigan. Like, how is this possible? How are you the same person?
Yeah.
That's my hope that
I'm going to be an absolute nightmare if Morrigan dies. I'm going to be like, whoever comes in, I'm just going to be like, you know, who are you?
Well, I think that me and Tom, who plays Killian Mortaire, Uncle Killian, we've talked about it. And if Morrigan dies, he'll probably become the Earl. will probably be it. Like he came in with me. He's very experienced at Empire. He knows a lot about it. It makes sense that he would take over as Earl, which he hates the idea of. But I'm like, too bad. Like you better make sure Morrigan doesn't die then. So, but like he's like, yeah, no, it makes sense. So I was like, yeah, it does. So,
I don't know if they told you, we had a really funny moment at the E4 battle.
Oh, nice.
Just before we went in.
Yeah.
He came over just to wish us good luck.
And we were right by the Sentinel Gate because it's us.
Yeah.
And he's like, go on, Robin.
We were like, it was like, he was like, oh yes, good luck and everything, and just speaking away. And then we started moving through, and he was like, oh,
you know, and he got swept up in it.
It basically turned into C3PO.
Yes, C3PO getting like dragged in with the battle droids.
Oh dear.
Yeah. I am so glad. It was so funny because, like I said, I was originally going to be just completely on my own with Mario. House Montego was going to be me. That's it. Yeah. And then Tom, and it's funny you guys talk about cosplay because Tom has a mutual friend of ours. I'm not going to say any names, but has a mutual friend of ours as well. And they knew each other very well. And I had gone back to an old anime con, very small anime con in Southampton that me and Tom and a bunch of others used to go to all the time. And after I hadn't gone for years, but I went, at the start of the year, just before at the start of last year, I was like, yeah, let's go along. Let's see everyone catch up. It'll be nice. We went along and Tom, who plays Killian, was there. And we just started talking about Empire because he used to go a long time ago. He hadn't gone for a while. And he was like, oh, are you still doing Empire? Like, what are you doing? What's your character? And I was like, oh, well, actually, I'm going to be making a new character. I'm going to Dawn. This is my character idea. It's kind of like a Dawnish Addams family. And I could see it immediately. Like the little light in his eyes. He was like, oh, do you know what I would do? I was like, what would you do, Tom? What kind of character would you be? He was like, I'd want to be like an Uncle Fester, kind of like maybe like a big friar kind of character. I was like, would you like to do that? Oh, yeah, I didn't get to do much of the religion game last time. Like, it'd be nice to have like more RP focused character. Well, would it, Tom? Would it be nice to be another? Oh, well, you could always come along with me if you like. And then it was just like, I had him. I was like, my hooks were in. I just dragged him in. But it was great because I was suddenly not on my own. And like, I think there would have been a very different experience if I'd completely been on my own. But having him there, and he's such a lovely guy. He's such a friendly. He's great at talking to people, which is like my big thing. I can't cold approach people. I'm really bad at like just seeing somebody and walking up and saying hi. I get like the social anxiety for that. No, it's true. It's like you get me talking, I'm perfectly fine. You put me on a stage, I'm perfectly fine. Tell me to go up and talk to somebody that I've never met before, can't do it. I hate it. But he's great at that. He'll just walk up and be like, hello, my name's Gillian. Nice to meet you. And I'm like,
he came out just like, oh, I got this sword. It's like,
yeah. Like, I've got this cursed sword here. Would you like to hold it? Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
He's that kind of guy.
Was like a great part of our like our entire test and everything. He
got dragged into it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Part. He loves it. He was so glad, like when we found out about Aranel's testament and stuff. He was like, yeah, like he was really happy. Like he's just a great guy, and it's been great. And then it's the nice thing from that is Morte has grown, not from people that I already knew LARPing. Like we've had 2, 3. Nearly 4, I think 4 people now who are brand new, who'd never gone to LARP. And then when they heard about the house and they knew what we were doing, have asked to come along. 2 of them are flying in from overseas to come along, like for the events. And that's been really nice, like introducing them to everything, but without having, with this brand new, because it's new for me technically as well, because I'm in a new nation. I'm playing this new character doing new things. So it's been really fun.
Yeah.
We're kind of exploring that.
Yeah, we've had other friends that have like started this year or last year, and then gone, oh, I'm going to start a group, and then they're very quickly they're like, oh, it's growing, it's yeah. Now I've got lots of stuff to do. Yeah, I'm perfectly happy not being any type of Earl anytime soon.
doesn't take your fancy just yet.
No. I think even when we're talking about hats and things like that, I think you're talking about like your summer mage friend. I would like to be hat adjacent.
Hat adjacent. Yeah. Adjacent. And an adjudicant or like a second or something like that to help support, but not all the responsibility.
Exactly. So if I need something done, like I do need to go and speak to someone, I can just go, oh, I know that person.
I know this person. Yeah, that's a good place to be. It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
So you're not going to do a tour of nations because there's a few people that will obviously they'll lose a character and then they're just like, oh, now I'm off to this nation and now I'm off to this nation and now I'm off to this nation.
I definitely would like to try other nations again in the future. I want to spend some, I love Dawn. I love the Dawnish brief. I love the feel of Dawn. I like the community that we have. But I mean, I definitely want to try and play other nations for sure. Like, you know, there's definitely been a few that I've always had an eye on. I think I would love the League. I think that I could do I think doing a High Guard group could be a ton of fun as well, because they've got a very strong brief. There's a ton of stuff I want to do. Marches. If I ever want to just be like silly, but kind of not silly, like a marcher group would be a ton of fun. We've joked about that quite a few times with some of my friends doing a fun, because there's nothing better than doing a nice West Country accent. Being around,
you just drop into it as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, proper marcher speak, right? That isn't it? Yeah, it's lovely. I live in Bristol. I hear it a lot, so it's an easy one.
Yeah, it's easy. A little bit more easy than the Varushkan accent again.
Yeah. But then Varushka, like I've got loads of friends in Varushka. Another one I'd love to try one day. Like I love their briefs. So
yeah, well, that was the other thing about having people on here, is that we've like, oh yeah, we'll branch out, because we had Jeffrey from Dawn, we had Jamie from Navarre, and then people were like, oh, you're gonna do all the nations, and I'm like, I guess. I was like, I don't know anyone in the nations, and then we started having people on that. Sometimes when you start learning about it, you're like, oh, actually, you know, we
met all these new friends just through them being in different nations and being like, hey, you know, I noticed you've not thought
so
this nation
passionate about their nation as well. Like we were like, I think after we spoke to Kelly, I was like, oh, I wouldn't mind being an Imperial Orc actually.
I think with something like the Imperial Orcs as well, like if you're playing an Imperial Orc, you have to be super invested in it, because that's a big commitment. I feel like that's like you are committing to wearing, like, you know, the mask and stuff for like the weekend, and I think you have to really love the brief and you have to love the character, right?
Well, that's what was you remind me of that when you were talking about Morrigan, how you had to it was a definite, like, this is out character, this is in character, this is out character, because you have to do the whole preparation. I asked Kelly that. I was like, oh, so like when you want to be like, how difficult is it to be like, oh, I need an out character moment, you know, but you're all in the mat, because I'm like, they're like, well, we're in the mass, we're in character, and then I was like, well, what about if you need an out of character moment? And they're like, well, we just go in the tent, Ollie, and I'm like, all right, okay.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually say this. I made this like when you reminded me with the whole Morrigan thing. When people catch me out of character as Morrigan, I'm not really this guy. Like this person that's on the podcast right now, they're not really at Empire anymore. Like it's the sort of other side of me that is there, even in the out of character moment, because I can't drop. Like, because if I drop, I lose it again. You kind of almost lose the character a little bit. Yeah. So even in the out of character moments, I am still very much the other sort of much more hyper feminine part of myself. So like people are sometimes like taken aback, like, oh, are you still role playing? I'm like, no. You know, it's an interesting thing, because like if I drop completely, and I notice this when we travel back, like when I fully de-kit and I've got everything on, I'm ready to go home, like people have come up to say goodbye to me, and they're like, oh, it's kind of weird, because it's just like, it's like goes from Morrigan to like, yeah, you're right, fucking about to leave, let's go. It's just very sort of like complete change in personality.
It's Robin running over to Morrigan's. She's like, oh, Morrigan. Oh, Mark.
And I don't blame. That's
not what I said.
No, but I wouldn't blame you. I wouldn't blame you if you did, because I feel that way. I'd be like, this guy, okay, he's all right, I guess. That's how I feel in daily life.
Yeah. Guys, we're over time. I was
going to say, I do have to shoot. I got some stuff to pop off. I got to go and do. But
thank you very much for joining us. This has been awesome.
My pleasure.
This is awesome.
You two have been wonderful to me at LARP. It's been great seeing you do the podcast and doing more cool stuff as well. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be part of it all.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you, buddy. Thank you very much for coming on, and we'll say goodbye to the podcast, right?
Bye, guys.
Goodbye,
podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. If you want to know where you can find Mark's content, the details will be down in the description. If you want to know where you can find us on other places on the internet, or if you want to get in contact with us, that is also down in the description. Also, if you like this video, consider following and subscribing so you know when a new episode is posted. Until then, you can go check out some of our other episodes we've done on LARP, cosplay, and TTRPGs. Until next time, though, we love you and stay safe.